opportunity to introduce myself since I'm sure I am a new face to everyone. My name is Michael Hahn. I am a partner at Nowlin Law, and we have been retained as the commission's attorney. Given President Mark Cook's absence this evening, I have been asked to chair the meeting, which means all I'm going to be doing is ensuring that we follow the agenda that has been posted and that the meeting is done in accordance with Robert's Rules of Order. That's my role tonight. The discussion and action on any of the items on the agenda will be done and handled by the commission members themselves. So, first item of business is roll call.
Okay, Alicia Hines.
Here.
Chris Brunig.
Here.
Sheila Palinkas, here. Dave Schrader.
Here.
Dave Smithback.
Here. Verification of posting of the agenda.
The meeting was posted and verified with all municipalities.
Next, we're going to have the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next item of business is approval of the agenda. Just to reiterate the conversations that I've had with a couple of the commission members, so that everybody has heard the same information. This is a requirement of general Robert's Rules of Order. It is also, from an open meetings perspective, while the agenda has been posted, it needs to be adopted by a majority in order to, for the business to be conducted. So that's why it's on the agenda, and it is subject to, the agenda itself is subject to approval by a majority of the commission. Items can be removed, but no items can be added due to the open meetings law.
All right, with that being said, I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as written.
We do not approve.
Is there a second? There has been a motion made to approve the agenda as written. Is there a second?
I second the motion.
Is there any discussion?
We do not approve of the agenda as it's written. There's a number of them that should be removed at this time.
Who's we?
Town of Christiania.
Which do you propose to remove?
I'd like to remove number 7, number 9, 15, 16, and 17.
Are you asking to amend the motion to approve in order to remove those items?
Yes, I'd like to make the motion to remove those items from the agenda.
Is there a second? Is there a second? Any discussion on removal, on the amendment to remove those items?
Why do you feel that they should be removed?
Well, for one, number 9, the director's not here.
He had an option to be here.
You called
He
the
was
meeting
out on
in the
spring
wrong
break.
week. Say
This
that
is out
again,
on
please.
spring break.
Yep.
One
Why
at a
is-
time.
It's Holy Week.
Why is it necessary for him to be here? Which one are you referring to, which item number?
Number 9.
Let's go back to procedure here. All right, so we have a motion and we have a second. All right, so that still stands. The initial motion of how it's written was made, it was seconded. You asked if there was questions, the questions were made, and now we have 2 motions in a second. So let's go back to the first motion.
A motion to amend, there can be an amendment to a motion that's pending. And
I don't wish to amend it, my original motion.
I'm sorry, it's a privileged motion, you don't get to veto it as the original movement. We can vote on whether to remove those. If that fails, then we go back to the original motion, but from a procedural standpoint, it is an appropriate motion.
Two motions at the same time.
You can amend a pending motion, yes.
All right.
Can we discuss?
Yes, you can discuss.
So is there a reason why you think, reviewing the budget versus actual should be removed?
Because we don't have an actual good budget yet. We've been working on the budget the whole time.
There's been no working since September, sir.
I know, we're still working on it, aren't we?
Nobody's working to my knowledge. I have not
No,
had
like-
anyone agree to or provide information. People have been invited, sir, to provide commentary, to provide input by either meeting, email, whatever. Nothing has been provided.
I know
Any
it's,
further-
from a Cambridge standpoint, it's probably beneficial to discuss the budget because your second set of dues is coming up, and I know it's contingent upon us approving a budget. So it's probably paramount that we discuss that.
Well, and just to be clear, it's contingent upon us providing a revised budget for approval by the municipalities.
And right now, just for clarification, I don't want to get into debate or discussion over the actual budget. The only motion that is pending is the amendment to remove those items from the agenda. So we just
Can we
gotta,
take them one by one?
I was gonna say, can we have a third option to remove some but not all of what was suggested?
it's your motion.
Possibly, but I wanted to answer one question there. On the review of the budget, there's no data that we can trust right now, and we failed to meet with Chief Blount on the budget. That's the reason why I had that removed.
If that's the reason, that answers what, I think both Commissioner Pointis and Commissioner Bruning had asked. We're not gonna get into the substance of it because again, we're
Yes.
just,
Yes,
so. I think we can vote on them one at a time. And the motion to amend the, agenda included removal of items 7,
yes,
9,
yes.
what was the next one?
15.
15
Yep. 16 and 17.
and 17. Okay. Is there any further discussion on the motion to amend the agenda?
Well, I mean, I have a discussion. The gentleman on the end mentioned that there was a failure to meet.
That
That's discussion.
it also, we're getting into actual discussion of the agenda item. I wanna take things one at a time here, make sure that we stay on task. And I think
Okay,
the-
and what if people here do not have all of the information about what occurred with that failure, or that meeting that did not occur? I mean, are you aware of it, Alicia?
I think it canceled.
Because I was sick, yes. And then, when I was asked about rescheduling it, the town of Oakland attorney advised that I not meet in the attorney's quarters with Mr. Blount to discuss the budget alone and in a situation with privileged communication, which in his view may not be able to be shared with the rest of the fire commission. And I made that known. I've made every attempt to contact Mr. Blount over the last several months. Alicia's made attempts, you can speak for yourself, but to encourage us to talk and to get his questions and objections answered, and that has not happened.
I think that answers,
Okay.
I think that addresses the question.
Thank you.
So can we go through and vote one by one?
Yes. So as to the motion to amend the agenda by removing item number 7. All those in favor of the amendment, again, to remove the item. All those in favor of removing item number 7 from the budget, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Opposed?
Opposed.
The ayes are 3-2. Item number 7 is removed. Item number 9, the EMS Deputy Director / Chief report. All those in favor of amending the agenda to remove that item signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Do we have representation? I don't think we do.
No.
In that case, aye.
All those opposed?
Opposed?
Opposed.
The ayes
So
have
are
it.
you abstaining, Alicia, or, I mean, for the purposes of this, I need to record it? Okay.
Item number 9 is removed. Item number 15, review 2023 budget versus actual statement. All those in favor of removing that item from the agenda signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Opposed.
Okay, so that motion fails as to 15, and item number 15 remains on the agenda. Item number 16, discussion and possible action on potential revisions to spending in 2024. Items under consideration: A, a change to require a director position to include working shifts. B, possible elimination of deputy position. C, determine what other positions exist and whether they are necessary.
Can we remove pieces, or does it have to be the entire agenda item?
The motion was to remove the entire item. All those in favor of removing item 16 from the agenda?
Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
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 Opposed.
Motion fails.
the statement?
No, not at this time.
All right.
Sorry. And then the final item from that motion, to remove item number 17, discussion and possible action on the Lake Mills EMS service. A, operating costs, gas, maintenance, etc. B, office expenses, equipment, internet, supplies, etc. All those in favor of removing item 17 from the agenda, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Opposed?
Opposed.
Item number 17 remains. Now we are on the main motion for approval of the agenda. As amended by the amended motion, is there any further discussion on approval of the agenda with the removal, after the removal of items 7 and 9? Hearing none, all those in favor of approving the agenda with the following removal of items 7 and 9, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. I don't have a choice.
Next item, with the agenda, there is no provision for public comment or comment from the floor in the agenda as approved. Therefore, we will not be having public comment or questions from the floor unless it is necessary for the commission to discuss with district personnel on one of the agenda items, such as the fire chief report or something like that. I know that's a departure from previous practice, but it is not on the agenda and therefore would not be appropriate under open meetings laws.
Excuse me, I don't have a comment or a question.
I'm sorry, ma'am.
It's a handicapped issue, I believe you'd want everybody to hear what you were saying. I wear 2 hearing aids, and I'm sorry, but I didn't understand, why you were amending the agenda. I did not hear the reason or the rationale behind it. And my other question is, why is Mark not here this evening? And then I'm also really curious, you're the attorney, so we as taxpayers are paying your fee to be here this evening to chair a meeting. Why is somebody else not chairing the meeting?
So I don't think we're
Ma'am,
taking questions, but if you'd like to sit closer
I'm
to
sorry, I'm
hear.
gonna come up here, I really can't
Do,
hear.
do you wanna sit closer so you can hear? You're welcome to pull up closer.
No, I just wanna know that, and I'll, obviously we can't, there's no discussion here?
There is, ma'am, and again, yes, I am the commission attorney. I've
Yeah.
been asked by
And what's your relationship to Mr. Cook?
none, he is my client,
Okay.
just like the rest of the.
I've never
Ma'am, I'm
been to
sorry,
a meeting
ma'am.
where,
Ma'am, I understand that this is going to be a different procedure from past practices. However,
right?
in order to comply with open meetings laws under the state of Wisconsin, if there's going to be public comment or comment from the floor, it has to be properly noticed. There is no provision for public comment. Therefore, there will be none.
Oh,
The discussion will be between commission members and, if necessary, district staff. That's consistent with open meetings laws and Robert's Rules of Order, which the IGA, the intergovernmental agreement that forms the commission, creates and requires. Next item on the agenda is to approve minutes from the February 8th, 2024 meeting.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from the February 8th, 2024 meeting.
Second.
I have discussion.
Discussion?
The approved minutes on the agenda says from February 8th. The date on the minute says February 7th.
Oh, yeah. Needs to be corrected.
And then item number 10, discussion and possible action on the treasurer's suggestion for bill paying SOP. There's no notes as to if there was discussion or no action taken.
We did not get that far to approve that. We approved paying the bills and using it that time, but we did not get to full discussion of that as a normal bill paying procedure. That's why.
So I think maybe just adding that commentary
To,
to 10.
okay, yep, I can update that.
And with those two amendments, I'm good.
What specific commentary, no action taken, or
No
that
action
wasn't
taken
reached?
on
Yeah, I
SOPs.
forgot to write that there. I put it on the other ones, but I missed that one, so we'll do no action taken, and we'll correct the date on that. The date is wrong on the agenda, correct? No. Yeah, it's wrong on the agenda, but it is correct on the minutes,
Correct.
so.
Is there any other discussion regarding the February, so 7th is the correct date?
Yes.
Okay, so the February 7th, 2024 meeting minutes. Alicia, could you make a motion to amend the minutes?
I made
or
the
someone?
original motion, so I'll take those two amendments into my motion.
A second.
All those in favor of approving the minutes as amended?
Aye.
Any opposed? Minutes are adopted. Next item, item 8, if necessary, appoint President Pro Tem for the meeting. I think that was contingent upon item number 7, which was removed. Item number 10, Fire Chief report.
Fire Chief Joe Evans is on vacation this week. He had a vacation plan since before December, so I am filling in for him tonight to give the fire chief's report. Am I okay sitting where I am to give this. Does that work for everyone?
Can you guys hear in the back?
All right, just kind of going through some of our operations over the first part of the year here. Since January 1st through today, we've been on 42 total incidents, 8 fire calls, 8 motor vehicle accidents, 9 mutual aid calls, 7 EMS assists, 10 other calls, including gas leaks, wires down, alarms, etc. 2023 saw us respond to 40 incidents through today's date, so pretty close, on par with last year. Our active membership is at 31 members, plus 2 active honorary members. We had 1 active member was dismissed earlier this year due to lack of attendance at meetings and calls and a lack of communication regarding this issue and following procedures set forth in our Constitution. We are still trying to get that member's personal protective equipment returned to the fire department. Additionally, we added 1 previous member as a fire inspector, strictly as in a fire inspector role. This member works full-time as a fire inspector for the city of Madison, and so brings a wealth of knowledge with them to assist with fire inspections. 2% due self-certification was completed by all 5 municipalities, thank you. Funds should be dispersed around July. Our 2% audit was completed a month ago today on February 28th. As documented in attached audit report, we were found to be in substantial compliance with state requirements. I'll pass out a copy of that when I get through here. All of our apparatus have had routine maintenance completed recently. As required, a DOT inspection was also done, and with the exception of Tender 6, all passed inspection. I won't go into further details about Tender 6, that's later on the agenda. We're prepared to discuss that further at that time. In addition to our regular department training, we have had 1 member completing Firefighter 1 this semester, 1 going through the Fire Academy, which includes entry-level Firefighter 1 and Firefighter 2. Both of them plus a 3rd member completing hazmat operations. We've had 2 members completing fire officer class, 1 completing the emergency services instructor course. Additionally, we've had multiple members taking 2 different wildland firefighting classes and an extensive vehicle extrication class. As is frequently the case, we are actively engaged in fundraising. Our annual cash raffle is April 27th. It'll be on the Ripley Lanes. See any of our members' tickets if you're interested. Memorial Day is also not far away, and we will be serving breakfast all morning. Please plan to attend. So that is my report. Any questions?
Any questions for the?
Nope.
Thank you.
Thanks, Tom.
Sure. I'll just pass out a copy of the report along with
this is also the report for the 2% audit.
That'll keep me from having to write everything down every time.
Yeah. So I could have probably done this first, but
That's all right.
that's,
Thank you.
that's the report.
Thank you.
I'll take one of the extra one.
I do.
I do.
And then this is the 2% audit.
There we are, you already have the 2% audit.
I think so, yep.
The 2%.
Yep. Yep.
That's right. Tom, are you prepared to brief the section on the agenda about the tender?
Yes.
Okay.
Any other questions for fire department? Treasurer's report.
Okay, let's see here. So you have in front of you the bank balances. Badger Bank has 70, let's see, sorry. Badger Bank, it says, has 94,521.14 pending payroll, so the available balance, which is shown as 70,582.49, is what it will show tomorrow morning. Savings balance is $70,031.68. Total in Badger Bank, 164,552.82. The liabilities, current liabilities are shown, $1,240,224.71. Those are the principals. There is a Rockdale payment for Q2 that is being made, so there will be another $5,062.42 added to that balance shortly. Cambridge and Oakland will have notified us that they will not be making Q2 payments until after they see the results of the meeting tonight. Cambridge set a final date of 4/1 for settling the budget to avoid arbitration. Bank First balance that has not been transferred yet. I have not had time to do that. The balance is 2008-2296. I will get that transferred to Badger Bank next week. The EMS billing account, I do not know the balance of that account. Mark Cook had said that he was going to initiate a new signature card. That has not been done. I asked the bank about it. So the Q1 and 2 cash flow projection report will show the amount, the net run fee amounts that have been deposited so far in the first quarter. So money market account at Bank of Deerfield, again, I'm not on this account yet, so I haven't been able to move it, close it, and move it. I asked Mark Cook to do that, so we didn't have to bother with signature cards. As yet, that has not been done. That balance, as of the last statement, is $36,412.94. Okay, the next page is the quarterly projection, which is essentially a cash flow report by quarter, so that we can keep track of what we have coming and going, and hopefully be able to not overdraw the checkbook and be able to move money when necessary temporarily to prevent that from happening. So the end, until today, March 28th, what is in the quarterly, first quarter report is total income for the quarter to date is $439,206.35. There are 3 second quarter payments that have been received, and those are from Christiana in the amount of $48,838.09, Lake Mills for the EMS and for the regular Lake Mills, in their respective amounts of $29,280 and $9,629.18, and then the Rockdale amount of $5,062.42 that I mentioned just a few minutes ago. So those have been received and deposited. So, and then with the actual run revenue that has been received quarter to date is $65,297.46. The cell phone tower rental income is $2,553.63. There was a donation marked upkeep from an unknown source of $1,000. So that is included in that $439,260.35. The checks and or debits that have cleared the operating account to date in this quarter, $462,323.20. Pending transactions plus bill pay is $37,826.94. So total expenses are $500,150.14. So we the first quarter operating is a loss of $60,943.79. And that would be a loss of $160,943.79, had we not transferred $100,000 from savings. Originally, there was $150,000 transferred from savings, but $50,000 was sent back to savings in the first quarter. So I have not done the projection for the second quarter yet. That'll be at the next meeting. Any questions about that?
So everyone has paid first quarter,
Correct,
just not second quarter.
correct,
So Cambridge and Oakland are outstanding for second quarter.
correct. They're actually not due, they have 60 days to pay, and they were billed 2 weeks early.
Yep.
We all were billed 2 weeks early. So,
So is Rockdale the only actual one that's paid?
no, they've all, the only ones that have not paid are Oakland and Cambridge. All the other municipalities paid early. We billed them early because we needed the money.
Any other questions regarding the treasurer's report? Next item, review and approve bills scheduled to be paid.
Okay, I emailed the list of bills to everyone late this afternoon. If you would like, I can go grab the copies so you have a hard copy in front of you.
That'd be great. I haven't had a chance to look at that.
I'll be right back.
Bills due.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, what you have in front of you are the list of the bills that, the ones that should be paid and the ones that I've marked to hold. The water and sewer bills, there's 3 of those associated with the fire station, and the EMS. They're split up, obviously, the bills, most people know that the water bills are going up. How much, Chris?
Possibly 66% for the PS.
Yeah, huge increases, so,
That's not till June, July timeframe.
okay. Then we have a past due bill from, it's a statement actually from CDW government for 2 computer purchases last year in July and August. One of those is the fire commission computer, which is this. We're trying to verify what the other one was. When I have verification of that, if it's legitimate, I would like to be able to pay it. If not, I would not pay it. We'd remove it.
Who have we asked about that laptop?
Yes.
Who have we asked?
I asked Paul, and I asked JJ with Land Tech because he was the one that orders them. And JJ said he would check into the second computer and get back to me.
And how long ago was that?
I talked to JJ today,
They were purchased last summer.
last summer, July and August, yes.
Is there a reason, did we just get this bill now?
It's a statement. I can't answer that. This is the first that I've seen it. I'm assuming that we had a bill, but where, I don't know. Can't answer that, I'm sorry. I also was questioned by JJ about bills that he say hasn't been paid for Land Tech services as well. Today, we've been cutting checks, somebody's been writing them a check, recently in the last month or two, so I don't know where those are. We'll work on that as well. HDM Towing and Recovery is a bill from last August for towing an ambulance from Cambridge to Lake Mills, past due amount of $400. So, we should pay that. I verified that it was, towed and needs to be paid. The bookkeeper invoice $527.50 for February. Nolan Law Firm invoice of $9,267.50 for legal services. Pumps, tires, this one I would like to hold. I'm checking with Fire Chief on this. This was a tire change on the command car, and we just need to make sure. I was with the understanding that the fire department paid all 3 of the invoices from Pumps, so I'd like to verify how that, was there a mix-up? If it's not paid, then we should pay it. So that's what I have so far.
The law firm one, is that due now?
Yes,
415.
Okay. That's the old attorney, correct?
no,
No,
that's the new attorney.
Oh, the new attorney, okay.
That is correct.
Is there a motion with respect to the bills?
Is there something we need to talk about on the bottom? The
Oh.
other-
Yeah, let me look at that, I'm sorry. Oh, yes, sorry, thank you, Alicia. The last, fire engine payment was late, and as a result, there is a late fee of $2,581.83. I have, put in a call to them, and I'm waiting to hear back from the, representative for PNC Equipment Leasing, and I'm hoping that they will waive the charge. But at this point, I don't have anything other than that. The second quarter,
So,
go
so
ahead.
for that one, Sheila, do we know, we should know when these fire truck payments are coming due, right?
Yes,
So is this late because we didn't have the bill, because someone else had the bill?
we did not have the bill. When it comes to the fire truck invoice, or the last payment, when I started this job, I asked several people, including Mark McNally and Mark Cook and Paul Blount, about where the paperwork was on this, how, were all the payments through Badger Bank, or was there some other place for the payments? I didn't get an answer. I assumed then, looking at the Badger Bank account statements, the liabilities that we have, I assumed that one of those was for one of the fire trucks. I heard nothing until about February 20, whatever date that was originally due. I didn't hear about it. Paul Blount emailed it to me, an invoice that was done in December for that payment. It had been emailed to him, and apparently there was a reminder sent. He in turn sent it to me and said it needed to be paid. It was already 2 days late at that point. I sent out an email to all of us asking for permission to pay it. I only got a response from Dave Schrader. I did not pay it. By the time we got permission to pay it, it was, I think, 10 days past due.
Do we know what we have outstanding with PNC equipment for upcoming payments due?
There,
How much it
this
was?
was the last one.
That was the last
Yeah,
one?
that was, I confirmed that was the last one. To my knowledge, now we have no other outstanding loans other than what is at
At the
Badger
bank.
Bank.
Right, yeah, because the last fire engine, the money was borrowed from Badger. The other one was a lease with, and the last payment was the buyout.
Okay. So, and then we have the the fire department second quarter invoice will need to be paid in the second quarter. I'd like approval to pay that once we receive the Cambridge and Oakland payments. Any other questions about that?
Is there a motion, with respect to the bills?
So do we want to make 3 motions here, or you just wanna do it all in one? How do you wanna do it?
It is however,
Up to you,
whoever
Dave.
wants to make a motion.
I will make a motion to approve the bill payment of $13,888.29.
I'll second.
Okay, but just note, and then maybe do a second one for the late fee if they don't waive it, and approval for the fire department in case we don't have a meeting before these are due.
Correct. Yeah, that's
Oh.
why I wanna do them separate.
Okay.
And there's one other one, I'm sorry. If we don't meet before April 15th, there's a $66,000 fire truck payment due. That will also need to be made, so I would like to ask for permission to get that paid.
Is that on one of the loans with Badger?
Yes, yep.
So right now, we have a motion pending for just the initial payment of the bills. That's been made and seconded. Any discussion solely on just that motion?
Yeah, Alicia, curious to understand if we go back to November, October, whenever, to have 2 signatures on a check. So then how, I know you've been using PayPal, so exactly how, or who signs those checks?
Well, when we had our last meeting, I described that to everyone. It's not PayPal, it is Badger Bank's bill pay system. And the way it is set up now, the bookkeeper has access to enter the bills. And then the bills, once approved by us, then I would go in and go ahead and push the button to pay them, but only with approval. Now, as I mentioned at the last meeting, Badger Bank has a facility built into this where it's the same as 2 virtual signatures. So the 2 signators log in. I've created logins for Mark Cook and myself, and each can log in and effectively sign the checks.
So you do that separately?
Yes.
Each one of you do that?
We have not done that yet, but we can set it up to do that.
So
Ask them to set
then,
up for 2.
there's been
It
checks
should be
that,
set up for 2
One at a
according to our IGA. It should be,
Yes.
okay, but
so then who's been signing the checks?
we've only paid bills once using that method. And that was only after you guys gave me permission to go ahead and pay the bills at the last meeting. So I did it.
So when is the correct system gonna be up and running?
When we discuss it and approve it. Or you can give me the checkbook, and we can get the checks written. Nobody has given me a checkbook. I don't have anything to give the bookkeeper to write checks.
They'll need 2 signatures, correct?
If we write a paper check, yes.
Or the other way, correct?
It would if once we approve that as a normal operating procedure for paying bills.
And that's a policy discussion that is not currently pending. The motion is solely on whether to approve payment of the bills.
Yes.
So,
And I cannot pay the bills except through this method without a checkbook. So you're voting to approve me paying the bills using Badger Bank bill pay is the same to me as 2 signatures, if we all approve it. That is an interim.
That's not right.
Oh, that's not right, and yet we've had one person signing checks and refusing to cooperate. Are you kidding me? Seriously?
question,
Let's get back
the
to the
question before the motion is to approve the bills. We are not discussing the
All right.
operating procedure or the requirements for the IGA.
All right,
So, any further discussion with respect to the motion pending? If not, all those in favor of the motion to approve the payment of the bills, the $13,888.29, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any other motions with respect to the review and payment of the bills?
I'll make a motion that we, if the PNC does not waive the late fee, that Sheila has the authorization to pay the $2,581.83 late fee.
I'll second that.
Motion has been made and second to pay the bill, pay the PNC late fee if they do not agree to waive it. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Any further motions with respect to the review and payment of bills?
I'll make a motion to pay the second quarter fire department invoice once we receive Cambridge and Oakland payments.
Is there a second?
I will second that. Discussion, Sheila, are you gonna pay, if Town of Oakland and Village of Cambridge make their payment, are you gonna pay the fire truck payment first? And if we have money, then cut the check to the fire department, or what was your thought?
I mean, my judgment would be to pay the fire truck payment first if
Yeah.
we're short on
Otherwise, you're
funds.
gonna have a late fee and,
Right,
yeah,
yeah.
okay.
No disrespect to the fire department, but we have to do what we
Right,
have to
yeah,
do.
you guys, I hope you understand that.
Any further discussion on the motion to pay the second quarter CVFD invoice upon payment from Cambridge and Oakland? All those in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Any opposed? I believe last call for any motions with respect to review and payment of the bills. Because the second quarter payment, Sheila, did you say that there was also a fire truck payment that needed to be approved?
Oh, yes, thank you for
Okay.
reminding me. Yes, April 15th is when that payment is due. And it's, quite likely that we would not meet again, so we don't want to incur another late fee.
Is there any motion, is there a motion to be made on that?
I'll make a motion to, make the, what was it, second quarter?
No, it's the fire truck
Fire
payment
truck
due April
payment.
15th.
Of $66,000.
It's 66 and change. I can get the exact amount if you want.
I think authorizing her to make the payment due April 15th, that way you don't have to worry about the
I'll
specific
second.
amount.
All right, thank you.
There was a question from the fire department here. We
Yes.
didn't see.
It deals with the previous discussion. I'll let you complete this motion first, and then I would be happy to jump in then.
Motion has been made and seconded to approve payment of the fire truck payment due April 15th. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
If I could just jump in real quickly, you were previously talking about payment or a bill from Pops.
Yes,
There were 3 trucks that got new tires from Pops. The fire department paid for all of those. And I think that in discussion with Joe, texting while you were having your discussion, he was saying that we paid all the bill for all 3 of those, and what the expectation is that the commission would reimburse the fire department for those bills.
we did agree to do that.
Yeah, and that's kind of where it stands. I'm not sure if you're
Pumps.
getting the bill from Pops.
We have a statement from Pomps that says that the command car bill was not paid. And I called them and they said,
Yeah.
so we need to, maybe you can have your bookkeeper check
Well,
into,
yeah, we'll check into it and
Okay.
get in touch with you.
thank you.
All right. Item number 13, discussion and possible action to freeze non-essential spending. one note, as we move on to these, discussion items. Again, I wanna reiterate that for the purposes of complying with Robert's Rules of Order, the, it's appropriate to have an initial, discussion or an initial explanation as to why the agenda item is there and what the need for the potential discussion is. However, once that initial statement or explanation, like I'm sure we'll hear from the fire department regarding tender 6, once that initial provision is made, for further discussion to be had, there has to be a motion pending before the commission for possible action, okay? So I just wanna make sure everybody understands from a procedural standpoint, how we're going to proceed. So for the freeze on non-essential spending, I'm assuming Sheila, do you wanna take that?
Sure. We continue to be very close to not having any money to pay the bills. At this point, we have only $70,000 in savings at Badger Bank. We have the 37 at Deerfield, which will be moved over, and then the $2,508 that will be moved to Badger Bank. We are spending money faster than we're taking it in, and there is no guarantee from what I've seen that revenue is going to ramp up more than it has been in the last 6 months to cover the rate at which we are spending. There are the discretionary spending, which is outside the essential spending, whether it's outfitting the office in Lake Mills, whether it's programs like Constant Contact, whether it's our Spectrum bills, went from $364 a month for one location, now an additional bill of $260 some for another location. I've been unable to verify why we have that all of a sudden. We've done things like painting, we've made changes to lettering and ordered uniforms. There's all kinds of non-essential spending occurring at this moment that we are not prepared to deal with without it being planned spending and approved spending by this fire commission board. It is extremely concerning to me that this is occurring. We need to at least put in place some controls that will allow us to approve ahead of time discretionary spending before it's done. So we can get justification, we can meet monthly. There's no reason why we can't do that in order to meet the needs that people have. This would not affect in any way essential spending for medicines and supplies and that sort of thing. It would not interrupt the operation in any way.
With that said, is there a motion? Is there a motion that any of the commissioners would like to make with respect to this agenda item?
I'll make a motion to freeze non-essential spending with the reference to the fire and EMS.
There's been a motion to freeze non-essential spending with respect to fire and EMS. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Any discussion?
I think we
So,
need to
Sheila, how are you gonna handle that? Are you gonna go to a purchase order? I mean, we have to have something to look at.
Yeah, we could do a purchase order of some sort. We could do a request. We could, there could easily be a request form that is sent out to all of us. There's a number of things that we could do to facilitate that, happening. The important part is that it is reviewed and approved ahead of time.
And
So,
and if we're gonna
I-
do that, that's what we have to do.
and it doesn't have to be permanent. I think if we can, maybe go for, till the end of April or maybe the end of the second quarter and get some of these issues handled and maybe hopefully start to see a change in the revenue, ramping up, then maybe we can reevaluate it. But for now, this is a very real issue. And, I don't want to be the person that has to call everybody up and say, hey, we need to go to the municipalities and get some emergency funding. And we're very close to that.
So we don't have a year out of projected income right now, outside of the municipality income, right?
Correct. When we all looked at the budget, there were projections made, about that. But the reality is, two realities. One is, the income that we are taking in is, not covering the expenses that we have, and that we are spending over and above what we budgeted, originally, like for 2023. And right now, we're operating, on the same plane as 2023. We ended 2023 with $315,000 more in spending than we budgeted. And there were some purchases made with grant money, okay? But the bulk of those were made in 2022, all right? So those purchases with grant money were not significant enough to reduce that excess in spending, okay? They absolutely were not. And with respect to the grant money, we have to spend the money before we can get reimbursed, okay? Which is also important to understand. We don't get a check and then go spend it. We have to spend it and then apply to be reimbursed.
So who's gonna make the decision if it's essential or not? You need to have a purchase order, otherwise there's no way to approve or track. I mean, it's just.
That's a
we're lost.
possibility. Essential spending, in my mind, is any supply, medicine, or supply needed to operate the service, whether it's fire or EMS. Supplies, medicines, that sort of thing are essential. Painting, changing lettering, more uniforms or different logos.
What about 500 hours extra of overtime?
Well-
Is that essential spending?
I don't think that's a fair, unfortunately, I don't think that's fair. I mean, I understand your point, but if we're short-staffed, which appears we are, then I think that has to be discussed and taken into account in a different way, but not as non-essential spending. Okay, because we cannot, it would be like nurses, being mandated to stay late at the hospital. In most states around the country, nurses are mandated to stay if someone doesn't show up. We can't cut back on EMS service because we're short-staffed. That's my take on that. I understand your point, but I think that discussion deserves, or should be, in a different spot.
And my understanding is there was several people out on leave, which is why that was required, to support the minimum requirement of supporting what we are paying them to do. And talking with Paul, they're on track for recourse for their wages to still be within budget by the end of the year, even with that increase in overtime.
Well, that remains to be seen. Again, that's a different discussion point.
I think that would be more, that discussion would probably be more appropriate for either 15 or 16.
I'm sure there's some essential things that the fire department or EMS are gonna have to have that we won't know about and stuff, and you may call it non-essential, they're gonna call it essential.
The world won't end if they buy it.
Say that again.
The world won't end if they go ahead and buy it, okay?
No,
That's not
I
the
didn't
point.
say it would,
Okay.
but there's such a difference of opinions.
Point of order.
Sorry, there's no comments from the floor.
Point of order, sir.
And the only people who are entitled to raise a point of order are members of the commission. The public is not. So I understand that there may be some frustration there, but the meeting is of the 5 members of the commission. And again, the agenda does not call for public comment.
Is that by statute or your choice?
The agenda does not call for public comment. Therefore, public comment is not appropriate because it does not comply with the open meetings law. As for the pending motion on freezing non-essential spending,
Is our
any
legal fees
further-
essential spending?
is there any further discussion with respect to the freeze on non-essential spending?
I think there's still some discussion to be had about a definition of non-essential. There has to be some clear, I mean, I think I understand the same as you do, but I think there needs to be some bookends and clearly defined what non-essential.
Can this be tabled?
Or perhaps we can put together a draft and send it out for review to the members.
That would be appropriate then for action at the next, at a future properly scheduled meeting.
Correct,
So it would not take effect now,
Right.
but it could take effect once approved.
correct. Would you like to amend it? Can we amend that?
If someone wants to amend the motion to add a definition of non-essential spending, they are welcome to do so.
To send out a draft for review? Okay,
If you want to amend it that way, that's fine too.
I make a motion to table.
There's been a motion to table. Is there a
Second.
second?
Second.
Any discussion on the motion to table?
I'm not for it. I'm for drafting a proposal or a definition and providing it to the members of the fire commission for review and possible action at the next scheduled meeting.
Is there any other discussion on the motion to table? Motion has been made and cited to table this agenda item for future discussion at a new, or at the next meeting. All those in favor of tabling this agenda item signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed,
Opposed?
motion to table fails. Is there any other motion with respect to the freeze of non-essential spending?
I would like to make a motion that I draft a definition of non-essential spending, make an effort to consult with the chiefs for their definitions and recommendations, and then supply the members of the board with the draft for review and possible action at the next regularly scheduled fire commission meeting.
I'll second.
Motion has been made and seconded to allow, or to direct Commissioner Palinkis to draft a definition of non-essential spending with consultation with the fire and EMS chiefs. Is there any discussion on that motion?
Attached to that draft, can there be a request form? That, an example of a request, that an expense that needs to be made that can go through, so we're not micromanaging the fire and EMS leadership. If somebody needs to purchase something, they can put in a request and purchase, and it can go through their chain of command.
Could be something like a,
And then when we get the chief reports, that will be part of their report to us.
I like that.
Is there, and can I ask the current process if anyone can purchase via EMS? Is there a current approval process? I'm assuming everyone can't just buy anything right now. I'm assuming there's some process in place.
Within the fire department, we have a process for, small stuff. We have a purchasing agent that, keeps us supplied within our budget for small things like that. Anything bigger, is brought up at, our business meeting for approval, that we buy out of our budget again. If it's something that, is a commission expense, like tires for the vehicles, that is typically brought to the commission, for approval prior to purchase, as the tires were, just as an example, so, we don't have a problem with going down this road whatsoever.
Can I add to that, as the purchasing agent, I do not have any sort of credit card as from the commission. All my bills are paid out of my own expense, and then I submit for reimbursement, so checks and balances.
Do you wish to amend your motion to include that as well?
Yes,
Sheila?
yes, I make a.
I'm sorry, Alicia had made the motion.
Oh, no, I made the motion, she seconded.
Oh, that's right, I'm sorry.
Okay. I make a motion, I revise the motion to include a draft definition of non-essential spending, conferring with the chiefs of fire and EMS, and also drafting a sample purchase request form, again, conferring with the chiefs, that may include a minimum purchase threshold. And then I would turn the draft or send the draft over to the members of Fire Commission for review and possible action at the next scheduled Fire Commission
I
meeting.
think that added a lot to what was originally on the table. So you added a minimum purchase price and then also coming through the commission, which is new.
Well, I mean, the only reason I added that is because, maybe we don't want people to be micromanaged to any, they have to go buy a can of, oil. That's all. If you want to take that out, I don't care, but that was all. So we can leave it as a draft request form and a definition of non-essential spending.
With that, is there a second to the amended motion?
I'll second.
Any further discussion?
So what do you mean by a minimum purchase? If you're gonna have a purchase order, it would have the cost.
No, what I'm saying is, let's say you have to go buy, let's say you want to go buy some oil for something, or, somebody ripped a shirt and needed an emergency, do we don't need to be that confining. My thinking is, maybe the purchase amount is $100 or more, or something to that nature, that's all. And again, that would simply be conferring with the chiefs to decide, put together recommendations that would come back to the commission for review and potential approval at the next scheduled meeting.
You're saying will not be full-time, it'd be just part-time, you said right away. Till the budget
could
gets
be-
straight?
It could be temporary, we could discuss it and potentially move to make it temporary when we have the next meeting. That's possible. I'm not-
Implementation of it would be at the next,
Yeah,
at the next meeting. It would
Correct.
not be, it's not part of the current motion.
right, it doesn't have to be done here, now.
Any further discussion? Right. Motion having been made and seconded, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Motion passes. Next item, discussion and possible action on replacement or refurbishment of tender 6. I believe the fire department has a report related to this.
Would you like me to start off? I'd be happy to. should have all received a letter, that was, written by Steve Grant, detailing his findings in an inspection, doing the DOT inspection of, tender six, finding, corrosion in the frame rails and, the implications of that. It did not pass the DOT inspection because of that. It doesn't just rely on his evaluation. He wanted a little more, of a second opinion on it. He went to Truckstar. They, evaluated it. They came, up with the same, conclusion that, it was not, safe to pass inspection and for it to be on the road. It is out of service right now. This severely limits our ability to fight a fire, particularly in Christiana, Lake Mills, Oakland, and Rockdale. Cambridge is a little different because there's water supply, in Cambridge that we rely on. It doesn't mean that we wouldn't use a vehicle like that even within the village limits, but, we were able to roll out of the, station with the water we have on, both engine 1 and engine 2, but the 3,600 gallons that we carry on that tender are pretty essential to us when we're talking about a structure fire in a non-hydrant area. It's also a very valuable vehicle for us to use on mutual aid calls. It's a vehicle that we are commonly, called on to respond to mutual aid calls with. Much in the same way that if we had a fire out, in one of the non-hydrogen areas of our territory, we're relying on, our neighboring municipalities to bring tenders, to help us. So our not being able to respond on mutual aid calls with that vehicle is a big impediment as well. So, since the results of this inspection, we've been doing, some homework on, ways of fixing the situation. To buy a whole new vehicle, in looking at some of our neighboring departments that have recently, purchased tenders, even ones that, are substantially smaller, carrying much less water than, what we're accustomed to on tender 6. They're spending, $400,000 or $500,000, for a whole new vehicle. One of the other options, we don't view it as a very positive option, is the frame rails could be replaced, that the vehicle could be completely disassembled, replace the frame rails, and then remount the truck back onto the chassis. That would cost somewhere in the vicinity of $50,000. The big problem that we see with this solution is that we still have a 24-year-old vehicle that is due to be replaced in a couple of years anyway. And to spend that kind of money on a vehicle that is at the end of its life, that has a number of other problems. It's also due for tires. If we went down that road, in addition to the frame rails, we would have to put new tires on that vehicle at the cost of $8,000. There are electrical problems with that vehicle. It's an old chassis. It's impossible to find some parts, even headlights for it. To try to put good money into this old chassis is not a good option. One of the other facets or one of the other things that kind of fits into this discussion is that replacing the frame rails is viewed by by the state as repairing a vehicle as opposed to replacing a vehicle. And where that comes in is the possibility of using some of our 2% dues that we get on an annual basis, that we have available to put towards a project like this. If we're talking about replacing the frame rails, we're not able to use that money for this. We're restricted on what we can use that money for. If we put it towards a new chassis, they view that as vehicle replacement, and we are able to use those funds for that sort of thing. That being said, what we're hoping to do is get a new chassis, mount, and remount the existing tender onto the new chassis and move forward with that. The timing, we've spoken with a number of different possibilities with who could actually do this work for us. It's been sort of difficult to get responses from a number of them. The one that, and I believe you've probably all gotten information on this as well, OSCO down in Orion, Illinois, provided us with quotes for mounting our tender onto a variety of chassis. The one that we've got a more recent complete proposal on, it's pretty lengthy. I think Joe emailed this to all of you recently. It would be mounting our truck on a 2025 Freightliner 114 SD tandem axle with a Cummins L9 450 horsepower engine with 1,250 foot-pounds of torque with an Allison automatic transmission. The cost that we've been bid on that is $241,600. The estimated ETA for that chassis would be December of this year. This company has space, inside space to work on these sorts of things. They have, given our situation, they would be willing to take our tender prior to the chassis actually being available, start disassembling it down there, and then when they get the chassis, that's the limiting factor, that they would be able to then mount the tender on the new chassis and sort of expedite the whole process by at least starting before they get the chassis in. As I said, the estimated arrival of that chassis with them would be December of this year. And so hopefully we would have our tender back early sometime next year. That's a long time to wait. We're exploring some other options in terms of getting a loaner from Stoughton. They perhaps have and there's some legal issues that they're trying to sort out with that right now. Joe is dealing with most all of this, and I'm kind of just reporting what he's been busy doing with this. As far as the cost, they would be willing to go with 20% down, and that may be somewhat negotiable. Again, I'm not doing the sorting this out myself, but that's the kind of the report on this is that they would look for 20% down on order, which would be fairly imminently. 20%.
50,000, a little under.
Yeah, a little under 50,000 to get this whole ball rolling, and then the balance would be due on delivery, which would be then sometime next year. That gives the commission some time to sort out how to finagle this. As far as the full purchase price of $241,000, we would be able to recoup some money from the existing chassis. OSCO has, I believe offered $20,000 for it. It seems possible that we might be able to sell it for a little bit more to someone else. Again, Joe is kind of exploring some of these options, and that's just kind of what we have to go on at this point. Almost done. And then the fire department has $50,000 of 2% money in a CD, which would also be available about that time, and we would be willing to throw that into the cost of the vehicle as well. Yes.
What would that extend that tender out to?
It's a whole new vehicle. The tender, it's what we put on the vehicle, the tank and all that, it's a plastic tank, it should be.
Mm.
And that had a lifetime warranty, you said before. That tank has a lifetime warranty.
Yes, now what that means, I can't really describe, but the limiting part of these vehicles is the chassis, the drivetrain, obviously with this one, it's the frame, you know. Those are the things that require it to be replaced. This vehicle also has a pump on it. It's a smaller pump than what the fire engines have. It's not required to be tested the way the engine pumps are. It has a smaller capacity. They would not be able to reuse the pump that is on the current one. They would put a new pump that's already figured into the cost. So the parts like that are all gonna be new. It's essentially a new vehicle for us. And we anticipate it lasting as if it were a brand new vehicle.
Other questions for the fire department?
Do we have yet, Tom, when can we expect to hear from Stoughton about their situation, whether or not they lease it, rent it, you know?
I don't have a great answer for you there. It's kind of going through Stoughton's legal department, you know, the issues that they might have about their vehicle being, you know.
Do they just have an extra? I mean, they have one that they don't use, or?
Well, I don't have a great answer for you there either. Maybe like a backup that they don't use a ton. I don't.
Joe told me they have an extra, but that's what he told me. Going back to the legal, maybe it would make sense for us as a commission to talk with Stoughton, you know, and legal, you know, if we need to work, you know, expedite this, in order, or do you have, I know you do, but can you tell us your plan, right now, for additional water that you need, that you cannot?
Mutual aid.
Mutual aid,
Mutual
and,
aid. So,
right.
The mutual aid system, you know, we have cards that, depending upon what the type of incident is or where it is, that it prescribes what vehicles all are gonna come. And if, you know, like for a fire in our territory that is not in Cambridge or not in the hydrant area, our tender is on that card. And if it becomes unavailable, and the dispatch centers both in Jefferson and Dane County are well aware that our tender is not available, so they don't even page it anymore right now. They just skip down to the next unit down. So there's another, normally, let's say we have a fire in Christiana, and the tenders that are supposed to respond there are Cambridge and Deerfield and Stoughton. I'm just gonna, I don't have the card right in front of me. Ours is not available, and so if that fire call comes in, they're gonna send Stoughton and Deerfield and Fort Atkinson, or whoever the next one down on the card is.
And for the benefit of other people here who don't know this, would you just briefly explain how we handle the water supply until our mutual aid gets here?
Well, that's it takes time. I mean, the fire happens, you know, somebody has to see it and call, and it takes us a while to get out and get all the vehicles that we need out there on the best of situations. And we don't have this vehicle, it's gonna take that much longer for, the next arriving tenders to show up. What does that mean? If there's somebody inside for us to rescue, if it's a fire that we can make an interior attack on, we're gonna try to make an interior attack with the water that we have and do the best we can until more water comes. I was raised as a firefighter in a hydranted area in the city of Madison where we didn't have these kind of issues. If we make an interior attack and we're trying to rescue people or get this fire put out and we run out of water, we are now in a serious situation ourselves, and we have to be very careful and coordinate how we are doing that attack to avoid putting ourselves in harm's way because we're getting in too far and then the water's not there. Those things happen, and it complicates the whole situation for us.
So obviously more water is better. I mean, there's no doubt about that, right? The more you have available, the better. How often, and this is probably not a question you can answer, but how often is that tender needed in your experience? Like how many times a year do you use it?
In our territory or including mutual aid calls?
Either or both, yeah.
It varies a lot. Gary, can you maybe?
I'm thinking of last year, I probably went on at least 20 mutual aid calls. It's more than one per month. And then, it probably leaves our station for our own territory half a dozen times a month.
And when it leaves, is it used when it goes to, I mean, is it there just for backup or is it usually used? And I'm seriously asking because I have no idea.
It depends upon what the call is.
Yeah.
You know, not every call that comes in as a fire call is actually a fire.
Yeah.
You know, quite frankly, it's kind of a low percentage, but, we don't know that until we get there and start doing our assessment and find out. And when we need it, I mean, we roll it because we may very well need it, and it's not just structure fires, we use it for, vehicle fires especially. You get a semi or semi-interstate, or, you know, there's even wildland calls, we roll a tender because that's a source of water for us.
Can I?
Any other questions for the fire department?
Can I interject just one thing further?
This is
Jerry, yeah, fire.
former chief. Yeah, as long as you're
Yeah.
He's good.
former chief,
Yes.
then yes.
So back in 2010, when we bought engine 2, we actually replaced a tender and an engine at that point of the cost savings to the commission. We put an extra 500 gallons of water on that vehicle at that point, and thinking that, well, we got 500 on that, but in reality, it was in hindsight, a very poor decision at that point. Because now we're down a tender, we only have one tender, we used to have 2 tenders. So there's a lot of things that went into that, but it's, now we're in this situation with no tender.
Any other questions for the department?
Is the
One-
truck loaded?
Go ahead,
Right now,
go ahead.
It's, like, what, sorry?
Sorry, both of you tried to
No,
talk.
go ahead, sir. No.
Dave.
Have you contacted Sirens or, fire service in Lake Mills to evaluate the truck?
I don't know the
for a
answer to
fact
that.
that Siren Service looked at the tender and they recommended we go with the chassis replacement.
Tim Scott, assistant.
Tim Scott,
Okay.
pharmacist.
Fire service in Lake Mills said that they could get it in next week for your charge to evaluate it. I looked at that truck and I heard some of the rumors and I was really expecting to see horrible rust jacking. And actually most of that frame is pretty clean, it looks good. All except for the suspension stops. It looks to me like, not singling anybody out, it looks like that truck at some time had been ran with the airbags dumped. because the suspension has been crammed up into the frame rails. And when I talked to the gentleman just today, as a matter of fact, he said that that's not totally uncommon, and he said those, suspension stops can be knocked off, that frame can be repaired, and you'll be all set. And what he was suggesting was, those are checked once a year, so that all the frames, and all the engines could be treated and touched up with, repellents, like, something similar to a undercoating to add life to those machines. So, I was really expecting to see the worst, and that frame really is in good shape, except for right where the drivers are. So then, I kind of, I also saw salt crystals in the frame rails. So do you guys treat with, a neutralizing agent for the salt when they come back in? Obviously, we live in the north, so this is not a huge surprise that there's rust jacking on, especially on double frames.
We don't really have the capacity to do that. And so the answer to that is no. This is not my area of expertise, but I'm relying on, the guy who did the DOT inspection and the second opinion he got from Truckstar. And, that it's not just one part of the frame rail, that it's got warpage all along, and if you look down the length of it, you can see how damaged it is, and it doesn't pass inspection.
And what about last year's inspection? It just doesn't not happen overnight.
Yes.
I understand that. I don't believe a DOT inspection was done a year ago. There was one done 2 years ago, and it passed at that time.
I would think that, since fire service is offering to do it for free, and they could get in next week, it would be worth,
Fire services?
whatever it's called.
Is it siren services you're talking
No,
about?
fire services in Lake Mills.
Fire services in Lake Mills.
Yeah.
105 South Main.
Any further questions? Sheila, did you have one?
I just wanted to ask that they, provide us with contact information for Stoughton, legal, just to put them in contact with the commission.
Sure.
I feel like legal discussions should happen between.
Fair enough.
I would
Is
recommend
there
we
any-
take it to Lake Mills and get it checked out.
Well,
Before we have any further discussion, if there are no further questions for the department, is there a motion on possible action based on the information provided from the fire department?
Well, if they're willing to look at it, I guess we've already had a second opinion, but by the same token, if they're qualified to look at it.
They fix fire engines, they just had one in from Franklin, and they do it all day, every day.
So is there a motion?
I'll make a motion that the truck gets taken over there and inspected to see what kind of values on it or what repairs needed to be done.
I will second.
Just for clarification, when you say over there, you mean fire services in Lake
Or
Mills?
in Lake Mills, sorry about
Mills,
that, yeah.
Okay. Motion has been made and seconded to have the tender 6 inspected in Lake Mills. Is there any further discussion on that?
I'd just like to maybe amend it to say at free of charge, taking
Yeah,
them
yeah,
up on
he
there
offered free of charge.
with no work authorized.
Yeah.
Right,
something
correct.
to
Yeah,
generate
it's just,
Inspection.
A DOT level.
yes, and they do
inspection, okay.
DOT inspections there.
All right.
And I think that would be, we'd be doing our due diligence to make sure that we are spending our money properly. And I realize you can use the argument that one of the engines is paid for, that we could set up a payment plan that did not exceed that amount of money, and it wouldn't hurt the budget. The budget could stay the same, so I get that, but obviously the interest rates are kinda high. So we would be better off if it's not too expensive to fix it and it adds life to it, that we would then, to keep our budgets even as we possibly can, start earmarking that same payment that we just made into a segregated account, so that when these things pop up, we have money to spend other than having to go to the bank and borrow it. I mean, it's just, if it, so it doesn't hurt so much. So that's just a suggestion.
If this does work out too, you could possibly have your truck back in action in a month, which would help the whole community.
Right.
That is
Any
true, but as I did mention previously, there are a number of other issues with that truck, that it is very near the end of its life. And we're looking at, replacing it in the very near future at any rate.
And that being said, if we put in, if the truck is replaced in 2 years, and we put in 50,000 in 25 and 50,000 in 26, and you guys have the 50,000, and then Joe had offered to put another 50,000 of the 2%, that's $200,000 in 2 years. So that puts us in a little, and I realize that the prices keep going up and other equipment ages. We just have to figure out a way to continue to add life to that engine, because it has 14,000 miles on it. Less than 1,000 miles a year. So, yeah, I get it, Terry, it is an old truck, and it has value, when you said about the $20,000, that doesn't surprise me for the age of that truck. So anyway, that's.
But
Any
there is
further discussion?
there is a possibility here, though, like Terry said, you could have 2 trucks again in a year or 2, right? You used to have 2, correct?
We did, yes.
Yep, wouldn't be bad to have 2 now.
It could be a backup.
Yes.
We don't know where to put it.
You wouldn't know where to put it? That new fire station's not there yet?
All right, the motion has been made and seconded to take tender 6 to, for a free, DOT inspection at Fire Services in Lake Mills. Any further discussion amongst the commission?
These, what you got from Osco or whatever, is there a time on that quote, time limit?
I'm sure there's probably some kind of a time limitation on it. I don't have that. As I said, Joe was doing all the work on this, and I don't have an answer to that question.
Because really, when you were talking about the 211,000, by the time they get done with the stickers and the repainting, is that more like 320?
No, the 241 is all of the taking it off, remounting it. The proposal that I believe you were emailed recently has all of the lights, the electronics, all of the stuff.
Turnkey.
And that's tax out the door.
I believe so.
Yeah, it's turnkey.
I thought
Any
it was
other,
like, yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Any other
Have you
discussion
had
on
any
the-
discussion with Joe about taking the truck to fire services?
I have not. Fire Services contacted me today.
How do you-
And,
Just out of the blue, or?
yeah, well, they heard what was going on in reading, so they made that approach, and obviously they're trying to drum business also.
Sure.
And it's also on the town of Lake Mills, well, actually, they're the town of Ashland right there, but they're community members, so they were offered to help
EMS
out.
has used.
We may know what the problem is within a week to 10 days. We might have to meet again the way you're talking.
and,
Right.
all right, so, any further discussion on the motion to take it to, Fire Services for a free DOT inspection? All those in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed?
I'm opposed.
Motion passes 4-1.
How do you wanna set it up? You want his number, you want me to contact him, you guys gonna work it out? What
If
do
you
you
have
want?
his number, I can get that moving.
Okay, alright,
Talk to you after this.
Yep.
Item number 15, review 2023 budget versus actual statement. Sheila, I'm assuming you wanna go back to back.
You guys would take, this is the same thing you had at the last meeting. It's just this report that you're looking at, was reviewed also with, Bill Christ, who is a member of the Cambridge, or Village of Cambridge. He's a CPA. We reviewed it. He asked questions about how it was assembled and, what various things were. He issued, his opinion to the Village of Cambridge that, he felt that it was, a viable report, given the information that we currently have available to us. He also took it a step further and had discussion with with Paul Blount, Mark McDally, the former treasurer, and I believe some discussion with Mark Cook. It did not result in any substantial changes. There was some discussion that the payroll numbers that Paul was keeping did not agree with the payroll numbers that appear in this report. However, I explained to Bill Christ the process for obtaining payroll information numbers. He asked questions of the bookkeeper. We double checked with Irene at Drew's Tax, and the numbers that are used in here are in fact the actual payroll numbers. I have since asked Irene to make sure that Paul gets the same payroll reports that we do. Bill reviewed with Paul his numbers, and there's clearly some issue as to how they're being calculated. It's better that we all use the same information and work from the report, the same report from the payroll bookkeeper as well as our bookkeeper. That was, there's no errors here in this report as previously suggested. So just want to make sure that people are aware of that. This is the same report that we put out at the last meeting and in January as well for review by the Fire Commission members. So, and it's this report that shows that we are over budget by about $300,000 for actual versus budget for 2023. I have not seen anything at this point to indicate that we are on a downward trajectory with respect to expenses. So that is why I'm continue to base the projections by quarter for cash flow and labor expenses, revenue expectations based upon this information. Yes, did you have a question or? Oh, okay. So, if you guys have any questions?
Yeah, I do. Sheila, help me if you can. With, in my mind, when you're talking about this, you're using the budget numbers. And the budget numbers calculates in all of the payments from the municipality for the year. But the expenditures only covers the amount for the quarter. Would that be correct?
On this year-to-date for the entire?
In general, when you're
No.
looking at year-to-date to the actual budget.
No, with respect to this report, okay, this is a complete year-to-date for 2023, January through the end of December, budget. This is actual performance. We, as a fire commission, I could find nowhere in records where we have had a full year budget versus actual report in recent history.
Yeah.
And I mean going
Which is
back,
a good thing.
It's unfortunate we don't know where
going
we
back
ended
like
in
15
2022,
years.
right?
Yeah, and
Negative or something.
we can construct 22, but I'm talking about going back even 10, 12 years. We have always only gotten this in piecemeal form at the time that we have a fire commission meeting. So the snapshot that we get or did get at any given time was a snapshot for that specific period of time, but not for, we never got a year-end budget versus actual performance report as indicated in the IGA that is due to the municipalities along with the budget.
And just for clarification, so everybody's on the same page, the statement and the information that you're referring to is for 2023, January to December.
Correct.
Budget versus actual, it does not include any information for this year, for
Correct,
budget
correct.
or
Right,
revenue.
right.
Okay.
January 1 to December 31st. Okay, and not to be confused with the quarterly projection that I send out periodically to these members.
Yep, that's
That
fine.
is more
That is-
for just cash flow.
Wanna make sure.
Okay,
So
Is there any,
Yep, I just have a couple questions. So
Yes.
I know, the point of question is there's some concern that things are missing in here or misrepresented, and Paul isn't here to say what those things are, and we haven't got those yet. But I did get some information from him, and I don't know if you'll have the answers today, but I wanted to try to get somewhere on,
okay,
these. Okay, so
all right.
he said there's $175,000 in grant and donation money, mostly from Flex and FAP state and federal funds.
What do you mean?
Do you know anything about that? I don't know if it was 2023 or should be represented here, but these are just things that I think are topics of discussion
No,
when we meet with Paul.
okay, the grant money that is shown up in here that was actually traced and deposited to our accounts was $80,000. $80,062.61 was the grant money that was received in 2023.
So what the paper that I just got says 5,000. So where is the 80,000 reflected?
There is a funding assistance program is the $80,062.61, and then there's an additional number of $5,000 that I'm not quite sure where exactly that came from. I don't have anything to support how we received that $5,000 in front of me.
Okay. He said there's 130, and again, I'm just passing this along for
Yeah.
topic of conversation so we can get clarity. 130,000 in ARPA from Christiana and Oakland used to purchase radios.
I'm sorry, what's that?
130,000 in ARPA from Christiana and Oakland used to purchase radios. So I just wanna make sure that the radio expense is not here without the offsetting ARPA funds from them. And again, I'm not.
Correct,
I'm
it's not,
thinking
right.
that you're gonna have an answer
Nope,
today, I'm just.
the expense and the income is in here. The ARPA, 130,000, I'm confused by how that was stated. Oakland and Christiana, as I understand it, each contributed $30,000 to the purchase of the radios. And then there was grant money applied for to purchase the balance of those. There was also an approval, I believe, in November of 2022 for the Fire Commission to use $30,000 in reserve money to pay for the radios. However, in an audit of that whole purchase, that $30,000 was not needed. The grant money and the donations from Oakland and Cambridge, or Oakland and Christiana covered the cost of the radios. So, and yes, the cost and the income is realized here.
Do we know which line items those are?
The radios, we'd have to look and see what line.
I mean, the
that is.
ARPA funds, like, did they pass through somewhere in this as income?
If there were any ARPA funds received in 2023, they are showing up as funding assistance program or grants. That's where those are showing up as income. If there was, anything else, I'd have to go search that $130,000 number. I'm not familiar with that number, but it's easy enough to look up, as long as I have it.
And then there was $117,000 from Town of Lake Mills EMS contractual revenue, quarterly about $30,000, offsets wages in addition to the $625K listed as wages. Again, not expecting a response. I
I'm
just
sorry,
wanna make sure that we
can you
clarify.
repeat that, please?
Yeah, $117,000 and change from Town of Lake Mills EMS contractual revenue,
Mhm.
quarterly $21,280.
Yep, that's in here. It's
So-
a separate line on its own. It's, number, 960.31 EMS restricted to EMS. That, I had the bookkeeper separate out the income, and there's two payments, $58,560, two payments.
I'm not seeing
There.
960 anything.
950.31.
Oh, sorry, I should put my glasses back on.
950.3?
0.31.
0.31. I believe that is the line that the bookkeeper put
EMS
it in.
restricted.
I had her separate that out from had her separate it out from the other Lake Mills so we can track it.
Okay, so if it's 29,280 a quarter, I'm assuming this is roughly 2 quarters. Is it just the last 2 quarters of 2023?
Right, that started in July. So July 1st is when the service started. So we had 2-quarter payments.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
And then, this is probably a question for our projected 2024, but the run revenue for Town of Lake Mills, and maybe we can get into that in the next agenda item.
I think that would be appropriate for the next agenda item, yes.
And then the last thing I have is the EMS billing revenue of 400,000.
I have not seen EMS billing revenue of 400,000. I do not have access to the reports. There have been a few reports sent my way that were taken from the portal. A report from the portal is a gross report. It is not a net report. It does not reflect the costs associated, the fees that are charged by the billing company. At this point, we have nothing to verify that. The run revenue that is reported here in line, or account number 900.1, run fees, is the actual net amount of run fees that were deposited to our operating account in the total of 2023. There is the EMS billing account, which was listed as an asset on our financial position sheet for 2023, which I did not bring with me tonight, but there is a financial position sheet where all of our cash assets are shown, as well as our physical assets. And that account, for the brief period of time that I had access to it, I had the bookkeeper add it as an asset to our financial position statement. So, but again, I've gotten no updated, I asked for updated reports. I asked for access to that account, I do not have it, so. But to answer your question, in totality, run fees, net run fees, or all run fees that were actually used in the operating, or deposited to the operating account for all of 2023 was $280,513.96.
Any other questions with respect to the review of 2023 budget versus actual statement? Is there any potential action that the commission wants to take on this in the form of a motion? None?
I can't, you know,
I'm just asking,
yeah,
you don't have to.
No, I understand, and
Yeah.
I've requested, information, but I'm not gonna get it, so this is what we have, yeah.
What information
Just-
did you request that you don't feel you have to complete the 2023?
Well,
email?
The financial position statement is not complete without access to the billing account, for the run fees. That,
That doesn't go into this, right?
no, it does not go into this.
So-
However, it is important if we want to, borrow money from the bank.
It's important for our projections for
Yeah.
2024.
Yeah.
But is there anything outstanding that you feel like is missing from the 2023 P&L that you've requested that you don't have?
We have unclassified expenses, but at this point, they are in here as unclassified, and I'm not gonna waste my time trying to beat people over the head to find out how they should be classified. They are here, they are what they are, and I would like access to that information for 2024 so that it can be properly classified if we make purchases from companies like Amazon, okay?
Agreed. Okay, that's all I have, thank you.
Item 16, discussion and possible action on potential revisions to spending in 2024. Items under consideration: A, a change to require director position to include working shifts. B, possible elimination of deputy position. C, determine what other positions exist and whether they are necessary. I believe it would make most sense to take these one at a time. So beginning with item 16A, a change to require director position to include working shifts. And Sheila, would you like to provide some background as to why we have this on the agenda?
Going back to years past or previous to 2022, and probably previous to 2020 or 2018, we had more of a working director position where shifts were actually taken, worked by directors. I've never seen an actual schedule to support how many or what, but there certainly are organizations that do that. Now, the issue that we have with that sort of thing here is because now we have paid staffing and union, there are of course limitations to that. But you know, it bears us at least having discussion and at least understanding these things so that we can say we have looked at these things and understand why or why not we do these things. It's my understanding that with the union contract we have, that it is not, I have not verified the verbiage, okay? I found out where to find it, but I have not verified whether the verbiage exists that says that management cannot take shifts that are normally filled by union employees, and I can understand that, okay? But there are potential exceptions to that. They could be overtime hours, they could be a number of things, and those things should be discussed and at least us be aware of as we move toward potentially ratifying or signing off on a new collective bargaining agreement.
All right, is
Because-
there any, before we have, with that background in mind, before we launch into further discussion, is there a motion to be made for any action on this item?
No,
I would make
go
I
ahead.
would make a motion to table this and have it in a future agenda in closed session when the director is available and discuss job duties and position description.
I'll second that.
Yeah,
For 16A only?
Yes.
Okay.
I thought you told me we had to discuss these things in open session.
The discussion of whether or not the position, the job duties are changed, has to be an open session. If it's an actual performance review or something like that, that can be done in closed session.
This is not a performance review, this is discussion. Did I misunderstand your motion? Or,
I think it's still, Alicia, I'm with you, it should be tabled because pending the DWD complaints, in my mind, when I look at this could be considered as retaliation. And I don't think that we wanna go there. And I would like to have it wrote into the minutes that the town of Lake Mills definitely would not, I don't agree with, even, visiting this, that if you guys do pass it, that we would be exempt of any litigation that's gonna come out of this thing. I just feel it.
that was number 16.
16.
Thank you. Okay. I have no intention of motioning that we take any action with respect to this other than putting these things on the table for discussion and awareness.
Have previous directors work shifts.
Yes.
So why is that so out of the question to ask?
Well, the situation was different previously. Previously, we had all volunteer EMS, and then we had, a partly paid volunteer EMS, and then we moved to full-time EMS, and then it became union. And historically, union agreements do not provide for management to be working shifts on a regular basis. There have been exceptions made for taking sick time or emergency coverage or things like that. We have not as a group ever discussed or considered whether or not we have expectations of that type of thing, especially when we're looking at $300 to $500 hours of overtime, in a situation like we are now.
So in a process where we're crawling, walking, and running, so maybe the best step would be to contact the union and see what their expectation is. Because we are affiliated with the union, it would be nice to know if they have those exceptions where management it's not in their best interest to go out on shifts.
Right, and I did have a conversation with Kevin Sherry, who is here tonight, about that briefly. He, made comments that are similar to what I just said to you about exceptions. I have not had the privilege of seeing the draft collective bargaining agreement that was given to Mark Cook some time ago. Hopefully we will see that tonight. So I don't know what's proposed for the future, but these are things that we should be aware of and discuss, in my opinion.
The motion has been made and seconded to table this until discussion can be had at a future meeting with Chief Blount. That discussion, as long as unless it is a performance review, must be had in open session. Any further discussion on that motion?
Is this just on A?
This is just on A.
I'd like to make another motion for A, B, and C to be tabled.
We have not gotten to B and C, so we cannot take action on those yet.
Okay.
Any further discussion on tabling 16A? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Opposed.
Opposed.
Motion to table item 16A passes. Item 16B, possible
I'm
elimination.
sorry, who seconded Alicia's motion? I'm sorry, I need it.
I did.
Okay, Dave Schrader?
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Item 16B, possible elimination of deputy position.
I'll make a motion to table 16B also.
I'll second that.
Motion has been made and seconded to table item 16B. Any discussion?
I disagree. This is important in that This position has not been historically filled 100% of the time. This position is a administrative position. We have two people in administrative positions for this organization, and our budget, it does not support that, nor do our needs appear to support that. I'm happy to talk with people about this and hear from the director chief about his feelings about this, but this is something that we need to at least have discussion about and try to understand as we consider what things need to change in order to rein in spending and be able to continue to fund these services without continually going back and asking for more money or emergency money from the municipalities.
I think the deputy is under contract, correct? What are the implications of?
We don't know that. I've asked, that's been asked and not answered. The fire commission as a whole has never seen a proposed contract, nor have they voted on it. We don't know that.
He has a 3-year contract.
When did that happen?
I think it's about the same time that Paul's was re-signed.
He wasn't here then. I don't believe.
Well, it was shortly after. It was 6 months after.
That, Mark Cook at one point asked me to write a contract for Jason, and I said that was inappropriate for me to do alone, that was a discussion that we should all have in a meeting. I have never been made aware of a proposed contract. I've never seen a signed contract. We have never voted on a contract.
So if we have it tabled to another agenda item that we have appropriate time to prepare and we know that people are able to be here and are not absent, we can have the discussion.
Correct.
Any further discussion on the motion to table item 16B? All those in favor of tabling all those in favor of the motion to table item 16B to a further meeting, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
I'm opposed.
Who made the motion and who seconded it, please?
I made the motion, Alicia seconded it.
Thank you.
Vote is 3 to, did you vote?
Yes. I opposed.
Opposed.
3 to 2. Motion to table passes. Item 16C, determine what other positions exist and whether they are necessary.
I make a motion to table that one.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded to table item 16C. Any discussion?
My discussion is that we need to request this information in its entirety to know what exactly exists so that we can have a reasonable, knowledgeable discussion in the future. I would like to make a motion that we request this information from Mr. Blount and or Mr. Cook so that we have something to work with the next time we have a meeting.
I think that's fair.
I'll second. Fair enough.
Okay, the motion to table is, then there has been a motion to amend the motion to table to include requesting information from the EMS chief regarding positions. That's been made and seconded. Is there any discussion on that amendment to the motion to table? All those in favor of amending the motion to table as stated by Commissioner Blankus?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? As amended, is there any further discussion on the motion to table? If not, all those in favor of the amended motion to table item 16C?
Wait a minute, I'm sorry.
Aye.
Didn't we just, we
You
did
amended.
16B,
You
okay.
amended.
Yeah, we're on, and then you amended 16C.
C, okay, all right, just wanted to make sure I'm keeping up here.
No, you're fine.
All right.
All those in favor of tabling of the amended motion to table item 16C? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Item 17. Discussion and possible action on the Lake Mills EMS service. A, operating costs, gas, maintenance, etc. B, office expenses, equipment, internet, supplies, etc. Similar to item 16, I think it makes sense to take these separately. So item 17A, the operating costs for the Lake Mills EMS service.
Oh, 17A, okay. Right,
Mm-hmm.
17A, okay. So, the thinking that we have here is that, this service, was entered into without, without discussion as a whole, with the fire commission. The contract was, entered into, by only Paul Blount. It was not reviewed, was by the fire commission. It was not reviewed by municipalities. Excuse me? Oh, okay, sorry. The intention here is to, rather than to simply eliminate this and leave people without coverage, is to evaluate where we're at, what it actually costs us. And the first item on this list covers things like operating costs, like gas and vehicle maintenance and that sort of thing. We should, it's my opinion as the treasurer, that we should be tracking these things so that we can evaluate whether or not we are charging enough money to provide this service.
We won't know that till the first fiscal year is over though, correct?
We won't know that if we don't track it
Oh,
separately.
correct.
Separately. We're not tracking it right now.
We aren't tracking anything right now.
No. We have no ability to do that right now.
Do we even know how many calls are being done? in the
They are
area?
not being separated out.
Okay.
So my request is that this information be tracked separately, like I've instructed the bookkeeper to track the revenue separately so that we can do a cost-benefit analysis to make sure that we're recovering costs and not just spending more money and,
Make sure that our per capita
Right.
rate is effectively covering our
Right.
expenses.
right? And the per capita rate is not a normal rate. If we're gonna, that's not, right now, all of the municipalities are invoiced based on
Equalized value.
equalized value. This is a departure from that and could dramatically impact things. So the first step, in my opinion, is that we track these expenses separately.
Which
Is
would
there
be
a
a little,
motion?
which would be a little bit difficult because part of the town of Lake Mills is covered under equalized value.
Part of it, yeah.
Right, but the EMS services that we're doing, that we're invoicing for are trackable. We can track the revenue, we can track the calls, we can track the expenses directly related.
I think some
So is there-
expenses directly related, yes, some no, right? Think about
Mhm.
gas, maintenance on the ambulances, right? How would you ever differentiate that? Maybe compare to prior year, what % increase, but that depends on calls.
We've been, there are ways we can establish, whether there is one particular vehicle, we can establish, how, where they charge their gas. There are a number of ways we can do that, but first we have to have the intention of doing that. It is not that difficult to do if we, do it. Businesses track these things all the time.
Before we get too further on then into discussion of
Yes.
how or if we should do that, is there a motion? It certainly seems like you
Okay.
wanna make a motion
Yeah,
on
okay.
what the department
Gotcha.
action or commission action should be.
I
you
would
to make that?
I would like to make a motion that the fire commission tracks the costs associated with the EMS operations in Lake Mills for item 17A, which includes the general operating costs such as gas and vehicle maintenance, anything associated with operating in the Lake Mills area to provide that service.
Motion has been made to track the operating costs for providing Lake Mills EMS service. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Is there any further discussion?
So how are you going to be able to separate out the area that is covered under equalized value compared to the per capita? Because sometimes those ambulances are sent out of Cambridge because the London Lodge, for example, is closer to, Cambridge Station than it is Lake Mill Station. So how you, I mean, I'm not against doing this, I'm perfectly okay with it.
What about
Just
mileage?
for the simple reason that we may find that we're overcharged at $60.
You
It
may-
might be 50.
Yeah, you may be, but we need to know. So I think we have to sit down and figure it out. But that's easy enough to do, to sit down with the EMS director and figure this, how do we do that? There's gotta be a way to do it. You know, multiple businesses, franchises, all figure these things out. There's no reason why we can't figure it out. I'm happy to sit down with him and we can figure out a way to track it.
While we're in discussion, from a Cambridge standpoint, Cambridge is under the impression that it's an invalid contract because it never came forward to the commission as a whole. We have an employee that's negotiating a contract in our EMS director on behalf of the commission. I never saw it, we never voted on it. So to me, it's an invalid contract.
That was all done.
Wait,
That's,
that is not, one,
Right,
discussion as to whether or not the status of the contract is not on the agenda. Number two, from a rules of order standpoint, that discussion is not germane to the motion that is pending, which is whether or not we're going to begin tracking those costs.
okay.
Any further discussion on the motion to track those costs?
You seconded it?
Yeah.
Okay.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Yes. Opposed.
Motion passes. Item 16B, discussion and possible action on the Lake Mills EMS service, office expenses, equipment, internet, supplies, etc.
Same thing goes here. I would like to make a motion that I work with the EMS chief to develop a method to track all expenses associated with an office and the operation in Lake Mills. We have begun seeing charges come through that are unidentifiable or new and not normally showing up in the current operation. I mentioned previously the Spectrum bill that suddenly showed up now for $260 some that I don't know and was never informed about. So my motion here is that we sit down with the EMS director and identify how we can track all of these expenses associated with operating the offices and the operation.
Motion to have Commissioner Plinkus work with the EMS chief to track office expenses related to the operation of the Lake Mills EMS service. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion on that motion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Item 18, discussion and possible action to place the treasurer on the LifeQuest portal.
I'm making this request, having made it numerous times. The LifeQuest billing portal is made available by the company that we use for billing purposes. All of our information that is relevant that we may need access to financially is also within that portal. I have been denied access to that based upon the notion that HIPAA, there's a potential HIPAA violation for that. That to me is a baseless notion. I am an officer of this fire commission, and I am at least as much accountable to and at least as much trustworthy to handle and knowledgeable about handling delicate information. I do not need access to patient information. There is nothing that I need to see with respect to patient information. The things that I need to see involve billing amounts that are in process, the amounts that have been, the amounts that are pending. One of the things about having asset-based lending with a bank, which asset-based lending involves a financial institution granting a loan based upon assets that you have forthcoming. I have made efforts to try and get that information on a regular basis. It has not worked. Therefore, I would like to have access to that so that at any given time, if and when I need to supply that asset information to our bank for the purposes of having a floater loan to make payroll or any of those other things, I may have access to it. There are a number of reports that the company has told me that would be extremely valuable to me as the treasurer. They cannot put me on it without permission. I have been denied access. And what's even more concerning is that no one on this commission has access to that portal. That is a weakness that we should not have. If we lose people for whatever reason, or somebody wants to harm us, not having access to that kind of information can be very detrimental to our financial position for a variety of reasons.
All right, I'll make a motion to place the treasurer of the Fire and EMS Commission on the LifeQuest portal.
Motion has been made to place the treasurer of the Fire and EMS Commission on the LifeQuest portal. Is there a second?
I will second it.
Motion has been made and seconded. Is there further discussion?
Yes. With medical information, the HIPAA laws take effect, and we're opening ourselves up to lawsuits.
Who currently has access to the portal?
Jason Kyra and Paul Blount.
So, and my understanding is there is a liability issue obviously there too, but that there's also, besides that, and I think that's an insurance question. Again, he's not here to talk to it, I don't know. But my understanding is there's reports with all of this information that are currently received that we could be sent on a regular basis without.
We are not being sent these things on a regular basis. Okay, they've been requested, they've been promised, there have been a few reports promised, and what's even more concerning is that the representative for LifeQuest billing indicated to me that our organization continually calls upon them to provide information that they already provide to us via the portal, meaning we're not using it as it's intended to be used. At minimum, there should be at least one person at this level that is accountable to the municipalities to make sure that we are conducting our business according to the laws, including HIPAA laws.
What's our attorney's opinion on the HIPAA laws?
This is the first I have heard of any issues related to it. I'm not even sure what, I have not been provided information as to what LifeQuest portal, what that information is or what provides. So without that, I can't offer you an opinion. I can tell you that if we are, as a general matter, there are situations where we can be authorized to receive that as long as then we safeguard and protect that information. Simply having access to it is not necessarily a problem. Question is whether or not we are entitled to have access to it, and without more information, I don't know.
Makes sense.
Yeah, and I think again, I don't know what it looks like, I don't know what granting access means, I have no idea, I've never seen it, the people who use it are not here. Again, I think this needs to be discussed when the people who know more about the LifeQuest portal are here to share what exactly it is.
I would like to
I
amend the
agree.
motion to require the fire commission to have a meeting with the LifeQuest billing representative to answer these questions with or without the availability of the other individuals who currently have access. This is a high-level management decision that we must make. We should not put ourselves at risk by allowing other people to make those choices for us. We have an obligation to educate ourselves and to get the information from the proper source.
That is not an amended, that's not, it really is an amendment.
All right, how would you
Given,
like to?
no, it's really not it's not a sure, the motion was to grant you access.
Right.
That is what you just made is a separate, motion altogether.
Okay.
And so we need to, if we're done with discussion on this motion, we can vote on it.
Okay.
And then if you wanna make a separate motion, we need just though what action you wanna take, not necessarily the rationale for it. So just a little bit shorter, so I can.
Gee, I don't have to be rational, that's great.
You can discuss the rationale for it later. So, the
All right.
pending motion
All right.
is to grant the treasurer,
Access.
access. Is there any further discussion on that motion? All right, hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed?
Aye.
Motion fails. Is there any other, is there any other motion or possible action related to, the placing the treasurer on the LifeQuest portal?
I would like to make a motion that the fire commission invite the LifeQuest billing representative to a meeting to educate us on on what the function and content is of the portal, so that we can make good decisions upon how and who should have access.
And for the purpose of determining whether it would be appropriate to have you granted access, or any other, the treasurer or any other commission member granted access.
Right, I mean, we have to have someone on the commission have access.
I am asking solely for the purpose
Right.
of making sure that this
Right.
complies with an
That's-
agenda item.
Right,
So,
that's what I said.
I think to that extent, I think it's germane to the question of whether or not, the treasurer should be granted access to the LifeQuest portal. Is there a second to that motion?
I'll second.
Motion has been made and seconded to invite the representatives from LifeQuest to present information, to make a presentation to the fire commission. Is there any discussion on that motion?
Sheila, are you gonna do this at a regular commission meeting?
What would you like to have happen?
Well, a regular commission meeting. I mean,
Well,
I'm
if there's
assuming you're gonna do it
something
on something like this.
sensitive, if it's something sensitive, then I'm sure our legal counsel would advise us as to how to handle that. We need to receive this information in order to understand it and how to deal with it. So I'm open to suggestions as to how we do that. We could have a Zoom meeting. I don't know, what will the law allow us to do in terms of receiving this presentation?
Depends on what the subject matter of the presentation is.
The subject matter is the content of the LifeQuest, the content and the use of the content and purpose of the LifeQuest portal of containing data that the company provides to customers all over the country in order to manage their finances and their services.
Based on that description, I see no reason why it would meet any of the qualifications for a closed session item.
Okay.
That information, there is no reason to provide personal health information or anything
Right.
else in that level of generality.
And maybe there's an option for, you know, role-based access, right, where you get access to the financial reports and not the PHI. I can't grant someone access to something that I've never seen.
Oh, right,
Right.
yeah, I agree, yeah.
Well, like I said, we have an obligation to do that.
Any further discussion on the motion to invite LifeQuest representatives to make a presentation? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 19, consideration of moving into closed session pursuant to WISSTAT section 19.85 sub 1E, deliberating or negotiating the purchasing of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session, discussion of draft collective bargaining agreement.
I'll make a motion, we move into closed session.
A second.
This does require a roll call vote. So
Okay.
Commissioner.
Yep.
Hold on, so
All right,
you don't
just
have
let
to.
me, okay, go ahead.
Commissioner Plinkus,
Yes.
Commissioner Bruning,
Yes.
Commissioner Hines,
Yes.
and, I'm sorry, there's two names now. So Commissioner Schrader,
Aye.
Yes.
Commissioner Smithback.
Yes.
Motion carries. Will you please clear the room for closed session?
We will go to the office for this.
Over there.
That way.
I just have a point of order. Am I correct in understanding that currently employees of the fire commission have access to the portal, but the treasurer and none of the commissioners have access? That's correct. That's correct?
Yes.
So the chicken coops.
And the rest.